What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we have the 6th episode in our draft strategy series, the middle round draft strategy. As I've said in the start of every single one of these draft strategy videos, the data is based off 770,000 teams over the last 7 years. And if you want any more information, how that was collected, how that was cleaned, all that stuff, either watch episode 1, which I'll link in the description, or visit my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. So, let's talk about the middle rounds, which I'm going to consider today. So in video 1, I guess, we did rounds 1 through 5 for the early rounds. It's kind of arbitrary, but just kind of splitting it off evenly. We're going to go 1 through 5 is early, 6 through 10 is what I'm going to say for middle rounds today, and then we'll just do 11 plus next week when we talk about the late rounds. So as we know, the best strategy for quarterbacks is 6 through 9. Early round can make sense if these guys hit their ceiling. Late round can always work out if you draft, this year's Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, guys who went late and crushed it. But in general, the best range to target quarterback is in these middle rounds. And if we look at just this season, so we can say, oh, maybe over the last 7 years, it's a really good spot to take them. But is this year different? This year makes so much sense. I mean, you've got Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson, Brady, Dak, Lance. I mean, a fantastic group of quarterbacks, all with a top 5 ceiling, just well within the range of outcomes. Yes, I think Lance is included in that, but just insane quarterback play in the middle rounds to where, obviously, I don't want to sit here and say, the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks are worse or they're, not crazy different. There's still much better. I'd still obviously rather have Justin Herbert than Russell Wilson. Even if I love Denver this season, I love Russell Wilson, I would obviously rather have Justin Herbert. But as I said a lot this season, the opportunity cost of taking a quarterback in the middle rounds, when we know it is so unbelievably valuable for maybe tight end early, but especially running backs, wide receivers, it's so valuable at those positions that you've really, really got to be making sure you're targeting positions in ranges where it's optimal to do so. And quarterback is just best to do so in the middle rounds. The opportunity cost goes way down, and the quarterback play is still really, really good. But another thing that I probably don't mention enough is opportunities for value. So let's just say you love Patrick Mahomes this season. You still think he's going to be incredible. And so you take him in that 3rd, 4th round range, kind of where he's going. So you're getting that pick, right? But not only are you skipping out on just truly elite running backs, wide receivers, really the end of that elite tier for those positions. You're skipping out on them. That's a big opportunity cost. But you're also skipping out on the opportunity to draft incredible value at the quarterback position in the middle rounds. Now, maybe it doesn't always work out. Maybe you go through the middle rounds, you're like, there was no incredible value in this draft in particular, because it's not always going to happen. But we have all been there before. And we draft a quarterback and say that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round, and then we get to the 8th round, the 9th round, and there's a quarterback that we have a 5th round grade on that's, at 3 rounds of value, and we're like, I really wish I hadn't taken Mahomes in the 3rd or the 4th. So again, it's not saying that that's definitely going to happen in your draft, just that you lose the opportunity for that to happen. And if you're losing that opportunity to get a really good value in the middle rounds while taking a quarterback at a massive opportunity cost at other positions, it just doesn't feel like the correct move. So quarterback, round 6 through 9, we'll extend it to 10 for this, but 6 through 9 is the optimal range. Just leave the middle rounds. Just make sure you leave the middle rounds with your quarterback. I really wouldn't want to be going late, and if you do go late, you probably want to double dip and take 2, but try and get one. Round 6 through 9, try and get your quarterback. And again, just to reiterate, just to make sure we're all 1000% on the same page, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, we all have our leans. Maybe some of us are higher on Denver this season. Maybe some of us really like Dak or really want to take a shot on Trey Lance as we get to the end of the middle rounds. But I think the larger point is they're all really good. They're all going to have top 5 ceilings. They're all probably going to have great years. They're all probably going to be really good values. And since we're always not the best, if you look historically, we're not fantastic at identifying which one in the middle round is going to break out, you're better off saying, I know all these guys are going to be awesome. I'm not 100% sure which one's going to explode. So just get the best value so that even when you're wrong, as long as you were wrong with a really, really good value, you're going to be fine. So I wouldn't stress about exactly which quarterback you get in the middle rounds. Just continue watching ADP, continue like comparing that to your rankings. And whenever one becomes a really, really good value, grab that one. Don't stress about getting the correct one. After that, we can look at running back, and as you can probably guess, this range is very, very gross for the running back position. There's a reason it's called the running back dead zone. Like, we see success rate fall off a cliff. We see the data show us that like you just don't want to be targeting running backs in the middle rounds. Now, it obviously does depend on what you did in the early rounds, right? If you started off RB0, well, you're going to have to draft a lot of running backs in the middle rounds. That's just how it goes. If you don't have any running backs in round 9, you might want to start attacking the position. But assuming you went with like roughly an optimal strategy, so grabbed like 2 to 3 running backs in the first 5 rounds with a lean towards 3, then if you do that, 1 total running back in round 6 through 10 is best. I'll post 2 graphics on the screen now, or at least I'll probably post one now and then one in like, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute, something like that. But both these graphics do, I think, a really good job of showing why you should be doing what you're doing in the middle rounds for running back. So if you drafted 3 running backs, then your next should come at the earliest in round 7. And it's not a great idea to wait past round 10 to grab number 4. So it should probably come in that round like 7 through 10 range. Again, this is a graphic I've shown, maybe not this exact one, but this type of graphic I've shown many times on the channel. Positive, so a green value, I believe they're green on the chart, but a positive value above 0 means that in that particular round, it is a positive to your team to draft a running back because it will improve your chances of making the playoffs compared to not taking a running back in that exact round given, the circumstance at the top. So I believe the one I'm showing right now, given you have 3 running backs, when should you take your 4th? Well, any value, if you're in that round, if you're in round 8, it's a positive value. It means if you have 3 running backs, taking your 4th is a good move to do. It helps your chance of making the playoffs. It is not saying wait until round 16 to draft your 4th. That is not what it is saying. Think about it in this way. Let's say we're through 6 rounds and I've got 3 running backs. Then round 7's about 0. Doesn't really matter. Take a running back. Don't take a running back. Not really going to have an impact on your success. Do it if you want to. Don't do it if you don't want to. However, your chances of making the playoffs increase by about 1% if you take one in the 8th. And you might be like, Nick, that's tiny. I don't care about 1%. Well, first of all, I do because every single edge does matter. But it's not just 1% there. If you're going to wait until round 12, you lose 1% in the 8th, another percent in the 9th, another percent in the 10th, 0.5%, in the 11th round. Like you just continue making suboptimal decisions. Now this one choice, waiting until the 12th round, let's say, to take your 4th running back, well, you've lost 3.5% to your championship odds, or I guess your playoff odds, by not taking that running back in the 8th round. So it's just compounding decisions. If you continually don't draft running back when you're supposed to do so, or already have that running back, then you're continually losing, making bad decisions. It's going to compound and it's going to be really bad for your team overall. So again, if you took 3 running backs in the first 5 rounds, which is what's optimal to do, then take your 4th sometime in the middle rounds. I would say that lean is 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that range would be best to take your 4th running back. And then as we see on the next graphic, it's pretty clear that once you do that, once you've got your 4th, this is not a range where we want to be loading up on running backs. We don't want to be taking our 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th running backs. Once you grab that 4th, you're done. You don't need to be targeting running backs. We don't need to be taking a bunch in the middle rounds. A lot of those running backs are going to bust. You don't want to be targeting it in this range. Wait until at least the 14th round to take number 5. Every other round will result in a decrease to your championship odds. And again, I say this is a really tough range for running back because there's so many busts in the middle rounds. But it also goes on to opportunity cost. Always remember opportunity cost. What could you be doing with that pick? It's probably not tight end. As we'll talk about in a second, like tight end, it's not a great range to target tight end. But what you're really losing out on is that one round for quarterback, which isn't the end of the world. You can say, oh, I'll just take one of the other rounds. But the number one reason is it's a huge opportunity cost at the wide receiver position in the middle rounds. It is such a good time to attack wide receiver. Like it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's not optimal to take a wide receiver really until round like 4 or 5. Now, I typically do lean towards grabbing one like a lead option early on. Like if we're saying that, 3 running backs in the first 5 rounds is good, like I typically want one wide receiver in the first 5 rounds. But the data does show it's not great to target wide receiver until like round 4 or round 5. But what it also says, which is really wild, is like if the first time that drafting a wide receiver results in a positive playoff rate is round 5, the data also says you should have 2 by round 6 and 3 by round 7. So the data is literally saying don't take one till 5, but make sure after 7 you have 3. So it's really just saying load up, take a wide receiver in 5, 6, 7, just continue to attack the position because it is such a good range. And again, going back to running backs, since we know running backs early are so valuable, such a good success rate, it's so smart to take them early. If it's also optimal to take wide receiver middle, you can see why builds don't always work out. When you attack wide receiver early and you think you can just go back to running back, you're targeting 2 positions at like the worst times to do so. That's not great. So running back early, hammer wide receivers in the middle rounds. That's just kind of what the data is showing us. So to kind of like summarize, I guess, what we've gone over so far, if we're looking at 6 through 10, that's 5 total rounds. One of them we want to designate to quarterback. Again, I don't really care which round it is. Your lean is like 6, 7, 8, but again, it doesn't really matter that much. Grab incredible value at the quarterback position for one of those picks. We've got 4 left. It leaves you with like 1 opportunity to take running back. We've got 3 left. Honestly, wide receiver, optimal is 3. You can do 2 to 3 and leave like 1 pick for tight end. But if you look at the best time of the draft to draft like a tight end, it's not this range. This is like the worst range. Early on is really good. Doubling up late is pretty solid. Taking 1 early and 1 late is a good idea. The data does not like taking a tight end in rounds 6 through 9. And so if we look at other positions, it's like, okay, if the data wants me to like load up on wide receiver, it wants me to grab a running back, one of them, it wants me to grab 1 quarterback, I don't have any rounds left to draft a tight end. And so it's good that in this range, it's just not a good idea to take tight end. Now, it's not really because tight ends always fail in this range. I really think it just continually goes back to opportunity cost. You need the tight end to work out because you're skipping out on wide receiver, you're skipping out on quarterback. You're just limiting your opportunities for those 2 positions. And it's not like we typically see, like Mark Andrews was, I guess, a case last season. He was going more in like the 4th round. When we're looking in this like 6 through 10 range, how often do we really find tight ends that just explode? We know every season like who the guys are who are going to finish, in the top 5. Beyond that, this like 6 through 10 range isn't all that different from that 11 through 15 range. And so if the data also shows double dipping isn't a bad idea, wouldn't you rather just push tight end off a little bit later, grab 2 of them, do what we've talked about today? 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 3 wide receivers. That is what is best in the middle rounds. Now, I want to close by reminding everyone that this is assuming like a 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex setup. That's like the most common question I get is, well, how do things change if I add another flex? How do things change if I add another wide receiver? As you shift away from that build, that 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex build, adding a 3rd wide receiver spot, adding another flex, it is going to change your strategy just a little bit. Things like quarterback in the middle rounds, tight end either early or double dipping late, those things aren't going to change because those positions aren't really changing. But adding that extra flex spot allows you to be more aggressive towards, honestly, any particular position, if it's flex or wide receiver, if it's, a 3rd wide receiver spot. And maybe just like lean towards them a little bit more early, a little bit more middle, and especially wide receiver in PPR leagues. So it's not like you're completely altering your strategy. It's, oh, I have 3 wide receiver spots and these 2 players are really close in the rankings. Data says go running back early, but we're in like the 3rd round. I already have 1 running back. You can lean more towards a position if there's another one you have to start because the value is higher to your team. You have to start 3 wide receivers. That means you should be more willing to lean wide receiver, be more willing to really hammer those middle rounds. Like I said, draft like 3 in the middle rounds, be more willing to draft 4 consecutive rounds of wide receiver. Just more willing to be more aggressive. It doesn't mean go out and take wide receiver for the first like 6 rounds or anything. But if you're in like a full PPR league that allows 3 wide receiver spots, of course, wide receiver is more valuable. Move them up a little bit in the rankings. And again, flex, like a second flex spot, it doesn't necessarily mean any one position is like so much more valuable than the other because you could go with running back. Like if you were like, oh, everyone's grabbing wide receivers, we have 2 flex spots. Why don't I just start 4 running backs each week, hammer running back? That is absolutely fine to do as well. So it just allows you the flexibility to kind of shift your focus away from a more rigid like strategy, I guess, and say whatever the draft opens up for me, if there's value at a position, I can be more aggressive in attacking it because I'm not loading up my bench. You can't go too overboard at, let's say, wide receiver, even a full PPR league, in a 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex setup. You can't just all of a sudden draft like 6 straight rounds of wide receiver because you can only start a maximum of 3 of them. But if you can start a maximum of 4 of them, you can be more willing to be aggressive in attacking a position. So I hope that makes sense. Let me know in the comment section if it doesn't make sense. I think I did a solid job of explaining it. But again, it just allows you to be more aggressive at a position if you're allowing yourself to start more of that position. But it doesn't alter optimal strategy. Running back is still a tough position in the middle rounds because they're, have such a high bust rate. So you still want them early, and you still want to attack wide receiver middle, quarterback middle, and maybe 1 running back if you need to. So that'll do it for episode 6 of our draft strategy series. I'll be back tomorrow to break down the draft decision between Stephon Diggs and Devonta Adams. Then Friday with, I believe, 5 breakout wide receivers. I'll confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be on Friday. Remember, you can see a more in-depth take on the optimal strategy at each position, along with a ton more graphics, and then rankings for each scoring format, and access to our private Discord at my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting the like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.